Hi, another day in the life of living in Fall River. I'm Linda Pereira, and Laura is usually with me here today. However, today she's unable to be here. But I have a very special guest I'd like to introduce all of you to, and her name is Michelle Hamilton. And Michelle is the new Veteran Service Officer of Fall River. We are fortunate that Michelle comes to us with years and years of experience. Michelle, welcome.
Thanks.
Tell me a little bit about yourself. I know you're a veteran yourself.
Yeah, United States
where did
Army
you serve?
veteran.
Oh, in the Army.
I only served here in the United States. I'm one of the last members, I guess, last companies that is part of the Women's Army Corps. After we graduated, there was no longer a Women's Army Corps.
Wow.
So, yeah.
You'll notice I wear Army
that.
Corps now or no?
No, we were integrated at that point. So I wear that Pallas Athena. That's the symbol of the Women's Army Corps.
Wow.
So last graduating class. Put myself through college thanks to the GI Bill. Got a master's degree. Yeah, all good things. And now I'm working in the city of Fall River, working with veterans all day.
And you're also an acupuncturist.
Yep, acupuncture and traditional Chinese medicine. Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
How did you get into that?
I've always been interested in herbal medicine, and the only way to get a licensure, medical license, is through acupuncture. So I have a master's degree in acupuncture, and the herbal medicine is the traditional Chinese medicine. Many years ago, when my father was still alive, I'd been interested in collecting herbs and dealing with that for like 30 years. And my dad was sitting in my backyard, a Frenchman, Michelle, what is it with you and these herbs? I was like, Dad, I don't know, because nobody in our family's even farmers, you know what I mean? My parents didn't even garden, my grandfather did. Come to find out, my grandmother back in France was the village herbalist. I was like, Dad, you think you could have told me that a long time ago?
Wow, so it's already in the genes.
Evidently.
How did you find that out? Did you do, ancestry kind of thing?
No, my father told me. My family,
wow.
so my father is a World War II veteran. He fought on the French side. He's a Frenchman, and he fought in the World War II against Hitler in France. And my lineage, my family's from French Algeria. So my grandparents went to France proper, and yeah, Dad was like, oh, well, your grandmother was the village herbalist. And I was like, hello? All this time I'm like, I'm a weirdo, but I'm not. It's my grandmother in my blood.
Wow.
That's interesting, isn't it?
It is, very
interesting. And after all that time, he never thought of even mentioning it. I was harvesting plants in my backyard, and he was like, why are you doing this?
That's
and just
amazing.
a matter of fact, oh, well.
By the way, your great-grandmother or grandmother did this.
Yeah, grandmother, yeah. So
now, when you joined the Army, what was your father's thoughts on that?
So I joined before I graduated high school at 17. They had to sign for me to join. I'm the oldest. I think they were glad to get rid of me.
How many siblings?
3.
Oh.
3. So
okay, less one.
They were like, yeah, good, get out.
That's interesting. Sometimes people that have to sign for their children to go,
there's resistance. Yeah, they were good about it. Honestly, they knew I wanted to go to college. I'm the oldest person in the family. The student loans were basically non-existent back then. So that was how I was going to do it. I would join the Army.
I worked in Fall River with lots of veterans for many, many years. My dad was a World War II veteran, and I just, I have him in my memory when I do these things. It's important to me. And I never really grasped the importance of veterans until, unfortunately, my mom passed, and my dad would go every year to his Navy reunion.
Yeah.
And when I went with him, he said, oh, I'm going to go, but I won't go alone. Come with me. So for many years, I would accompany him and met a lot of his friends that, were on the same ship or in the same area as he. And they always had like a social hour.
Yep.
And the stories that I heard, it was amazing.
It's amazing.
And one day we were in Seattle, and we had a few hours spanned from all the events that they have planned. So we decided to go into the city, and his friend Ansel, who was from Wisconsin, he'd always bring cheese to the reunions.
Of course he did.
You know,
That's
he'd
right.
always bring us cheese for our social hour. He had nothing to do. Oh, wait, I said, well, we're going downtown. You're welcome to join us. So he came. When we got on a bus, it was a whole bunch of kids from high school that were on the bus on their way home. They got up and gave them a seat because they had their military hats on.
Yeah.
Gave them a seat, started asking them questions. I mean, these kids, not kidding, they were standing up and like around them.
Yeah.
And my dad and Ansel were, you know, answering all the questions they had. When we got to our stop, which was like the last stop, the bus driver said, you know, lady, all of these kids should have gotten off at their stops already. But this was better than any history class they would learn in school.
Yeah.
He said, I'll drop them all off on the way back up. But, you know, and they were like hanging out the window saying goodbye to them. And, well, when they got back to our hotel where we were staying at social hour, my father and Ansel couldn't stop telling all their colleagues what had happened.
Yeah.
You know, and the kids really want to know. We also had a city councilor, Bill Whitty, and Bill at one point did a World War II video with like talking to people. I think it was, at that time, it might have been recorded
Yep.
stories. Today you can do videos, which would be great to have a history of
Yeah.
people. But when you talk about women, I've worked with a lot of veterans, it's always men. What do we do to help our women veterans connect with each other? Is there?
It's definitely harder. I did not ever have a relationship with any female veterans while I was raising my children. Nobody knew I was a veteran. For the most part, they didn't know. And until the VSO for the town of Middleborough, Paul Preventure, introduced, this town wanted to do a project where they wanted to have a women veterans memorial in the Memorial Park. And he's like, I want you to be on the committee. So it's like, okay. And I'm going to introduce you to this other lady, Nikki. I think you're going to love her. Yeah, we're best friends now. So, and we've been best friends for probably 10 years now. We worked on the Women Veterans Memorial. We joined Rolling Thunder together. We just clicked right away. As a female veteran, I think it's a little bit harder to have community because when we leave our military service, we blend right back into the community. You're a mom, you're, you know, whatever your job is, and people don't know we're veterans. They don't ask if we're veterans. So it's definitely harder to find your village.
So this is a good program to say, if you are a woman's veteran, call the VSO's office.
Absolutely.
Let's see if we can get a group together of women veterans. My daughter has a very good friend. She's like my third daughter. She's a great kid, Cricket. We call her Crick. She was in the Navy.
Yeah.
And you know, when I talked to her, I mean, initially I never knew. She never really talked about it. But then when I found out, I said, do you do anything, you know, with some camaraderie? And she said, you just don't know where to go.
Right. I think that that's very true. And, you know, so many places are about the male veterans. And, yeah, we have not advocated strong enough for ourselves
Right.
As a community. So when we find each other, we just kind of stick together. In my office, I'd like to do a couple times a month, maybe a veterans coffee hour. I'm looking for a place to do that right now. If there's any businesses that would like to sponsor us, we would love to do that. Maybe a book club or, you know, something so that people and the ladies especially can get together and start to get to know each other, learn about benefits and support each other more than anything else.
And to learn about benefits, because, you know, veterans are eligible for benefits.
Yeah.
And, you know, when I see a veteran and they, oh, I never did, I don't think I'd get it. But what's your motto on?
Well, if you don't try, you don't know. That's what I think. And there's a lot of good things out there. There's a lot more things available now than you can ever even imagine. And if the worst thing that happens is you meet other veterans and you sit for an hour or so and enjoy coffee and make a friend, like, what's wrong with that? Nothing.
Nothing.
So yeah, I think, you know, if there are ladies and they want to reach out to me at Fall River City Hall, I would love to hear from them. And if they have ideas of things that we can do better as a female community, I'm all for it.
And that's a great thing to do. Your next big event coming up is when?
We have Vietnam Veterans Recognition Day, March 29th at City Hall at 11 o'clock. I think it's important that we make sure we welcome the Vietnam veterans home because they didn't get that. So we're definitely, and we'd love for anybody to come. We also have various activities going on for Memorial Day weekend. And everything's still in the planning stages, but we're looking to do a candlelight vigil in honor of all the families of the fallen the Saturday night before Memorial Day. And then we have a whole bunch of activities going on Sunday, the 29th of, I could be saying the wrong date, the Sunday before Memorial Day down at the park.
And I will tell you, in Fall River, we do tend to honor our veterans. You know, and no, we don't forget them at all. And if you look around the city, there's lots of monuments.
So many memorials.
I would love for maybe somebody at BCC or somebody over at one of the high schools to do, like, take one memorial and do the history of that memorial.
Oh, wouldn't that be awesome?
Yeah. You know, even if we
because
did like just one or two memorials, you know, together and just talk about them and
some of them are quite old. I
Yeah.
mean, from Civil War memorials on. So there's a lot of history, and I think a lot of people would love to learn about that. I know I would.
Well, there's one, it's from World War I, and it's near the Notre Dame, with the old Notre Dame church. And I think when they bought that parcel, that church, they still left that island part where it's on for the city, or I've heard something about that. And people said, you know, maybe we can move that to Veterans Memorial Park. So I went by to look at it. Oh my God, it's huge.
Is it tall?
I don't
and
know
beautiful?
that we could, I don't know what the cost would be to move something like that. But it's really very, very grandeur. It's very nice.
So it would fit in the Memorial Park real nicely.
It would. But that would be interesting to see.
Yeah.
You know, and even for people to know about the benefits. I know there's Chapter 115.
Chapter 115. There's VA benefits as well. And there's I don't want to say private organizations. There's other groups that are out there that can help veterans. Multiple places. I belong to Rolling Thunder. Rolling Thunder helps veterans. You might not fit for Chapter 115. You might be in a tough spot and not have fuel oil. Well, that's what we're about. There's Hydrea for Heroes. They will help veterans. We've paid people's mortgages through that group. You know, people find themselves in a tough spot. People lose jobs, people get divorced, children need extra things. And so it isn't just Chapter 115, it isn't just VA benefits. There are other organizations out there that, if you don't fit the monetary guidelines, are willing to help too.
Well, I know Rolling Thunder has helped a couple of people in Fall River that just fell with, like, losing a job or, you know, illness that comes in.
And it's quick and easy. We
Yes.
qualify you, let's do it.
It was so helpful to those individuals that I know of. And I know you do so much more. And constantly having fundraisers to raise money to be able to help.
Yep.
And that's wonderful. Now, Rolling Thunder basically is an organization to help veterans. How many chapters do you have?
90 chapters in the United States. We're in every state. There's 2 here in Massachusetts, one that services more the Boston area, and then the chapter that I'm a part of that services the South Shore. So.
And then there's one in Rhode Island as well?
Rhode Island.
New
Vermont,
Hampshire?
3 in New Hampshire.
3 in New Hampshire.
2 in Maine.
Wow.
So we'll all gather together. We'll be here Memorial Day weekend. We will ride from Plain Ridge Park Casino to the Fall River Vietnam Veterans Memorial Sunday of Memorial Day weekend that all 9 chapters will be involved in that.
And just to hear the roaring of
It's
thunder.
a lot of fun. It's a
It's-
lot of fun. And it's a great honor to be able to be there for the families.
And, you know, not every single person that's a member of Rolling Thunder is a veteran.
Not everybody's a veteran. Not everybody rides a motorcycle. You don't need to be a veteran to join. You don't need to ride a motorcycle to join. We have junior members. You just have to care about veterans and the issues that face families of missing in action and prisoners of war. That's it. That's
You
the
know,
mission.
when they do the MIA POW Day, that one really,
It's tough to get through. Yeah.
it does.
Yeah.
Because I forgot the gentleman's name who came and spoke.
Richard
Richard.
Fitz. Yeah.
Tell the story of Richard Fitz. That's amazing.
So I met Rich through his movie that he made called 21 Years of Folded Flag. And it's about his father, who was a Green Beret and lost in Vietnam. They did find his father's remains. He was a younger man at the time. But yeah, it's interesting to meet the families, and you will never, ever take the POW issue slight when you meet one of those families. One of my chapter members, her brother's missing from Vietnam, William Smith, and she joined Rolling Thunder, and his brother served, Bob Smith served during Vietnam, and you can see the way the whole family's been impacted. Some families can't talk about it. I have another person that I know, her mom's brother is missing from Korea, and she can't bring herself to come.
It just never gives you that closure.
No closure.
You know, when that Richard Fitz talked about, you know, when I was going to sports games and saw my friends with their dads in the stand,
Yeah.
when I graduated and walked across the stage
Yeah.
and my dad wasn't there, and, you know, all of these things, and wondered, you know, what would my dad say to me? How proud would he be of these, you know,
And a lot of his
milestones?
dad's missions were secret.
Yeah.
So the family wasn't able to find out a lot of things. I was at the National Leadership Conference for Rolling Thunder, and we had a couple of speakers, and a father and Mr. Oh gosh, I can't remember his name. That's bad. Spoke to us. He was held prisoner of war for 5 years in the Hanoi Hilton, and his family members were there, his daughter and his son. Interestingly enough, while their dad was held, they weren't allowed to talk about the fact that their dad was a prisoner of war. So they were on a military base, living there. Other families had family members who were missing, and they never were connected with each other because they weren't able to ever talk about it because it would endanger their family member.
Wow.
Crazy.
But then when he said, Richard was already an adult. He was
Yep. He was
21,
an adult.
22, when he happened to be at his mother's house and the phone rang and he answered it, and it was saying that they found
They found his father's
his
remains.
father's remains.
Yep.
And now with DNA, when they find remains, there's ways to check that. I mean, the advancement of
And
science.
we've been lucky as a Rolling Thunder member. I've been able to be there when remains came back. We've been able to talk to the families. The families are always so grateful to us, and we're always like, what are you talking about? Like, we didn't do anything. We just wanted to
Support
be
you.
here for you.
Yeah.
So they're so grateful, and it's definitely different for them when that family member comes back, and they never, ever, it's never forgotten. It becomes a generational thing. We, at one point in time, there was a POW flag that circulated. The United States went from state to state, and we had the honor of having it not once but twice. And the families of William Smith came. There was a book to sign, and the flag itself, and grandchildren, and they were like talking to the grandchildren about Uncle Billy, and you know, so it's generationally, and I think, you know, it's an important mission.
I think for anybody who loses somebody and you don't know where that body is or what happened, you have all these questions, and you know, you think of all these crazy
Yeah,
things
it's a
that could have
lot.
happened, could have been. That wears a lot on a
And
family.
you see it in those families' faces. You don't really realize until you know them and talk to them. I mean, they walk among us. They're a part of, you
Right.
know, 87,000 still missing.
And sometimes it's even when you've been to war and you come back, you can't erase the images that you have in your mind
Yeah.
of some of the things that you saw.
Some of the things you saw and some of the things you did. Yep.
Exactly. And, you know, you're instructed, we need to do this or that, or
You're doing your job.
I know.
You're just doing your job.
But I think, I don't know how some of the veterans come back and live with. My dad never talked about his experiences in World
Yeah.
War II, ever. Until I went to his Navy reunions with him, did I find out. Because he would be talking to his friends. Remember when, you know, this kamikaze plane came down? Remember? Yeah. Then I was like, oh my God, that happened, and, you know, you were there. Remember when they bombed the ship at this end? And good thing we were playing, you know, we were over here and
Drinking
I'm
coffee
like,
and
how many
relaxing, and
times?
then, yeah.
And I found out then that his ship was bombed 7 times.
How do you walk out? Mr. McDaniel, that's the gentleman's name that I spoke
Remember that.
about in, he was the one who was held prisoner of war at the Hanoi Hilton for 5 years. And he came and talked to us. And he was a great speaker and so well adjusted and well adapted. And one of the things we asked him was, how'd you do it? And he said, faith.
Yeah.
Faith. So how does a person rebound from that? I think community, you know, I don't know. But he was a very, very interesting person, and what a loving family.
Faith does have a lot
He said faith.
to do with that. You know, Morton Dean, who is from Fall River, his name was Morton Dabowski, but Morton Dean, as a journalist, as a correspondent, he did a medevac flight, and he has it on YouTube. There's a whole segment, and he was there on a medevac flight, picking up wounded soldiers, and then, you know, transporting them to the hospital or wherever the doctors were. But they never met one another after.
Yep.
Many years later, he went back to the pilots, to all of the injured soldiers that he had gotten, and they all had a reunion together. Oh my God.
How wonderful is that,
Oh
right?
my God. That was so touching. Actually, he was one of our speakers when we did the Vietnam Memorial Wall. And he's just a real delight. The studio at Durfee, their TV studio, is named after him. Yeah, which is great. And he did a lot of things with veterans as well because of, you know, what his own experiences were.
I think if you're ever around a person who has served in a conflict, especially those very special people who came out and wanted to share with the community and stuff, you'll never forget it. And you'll never take your freedom for granted.
No, that's the truth. You
Never.
don't. I mean, that's how I feel. You don't really, I don't take it for granted at all.
I think about my dad living in an occupied country,
Yeah?
World War II. Like, can you imagine? We've never had that problem here in the United States. Imagine fighting in your country occupied by a foreign nation. I can't even, you know, and coming out the other end of it, having a family, raising 4 kids who mostly are normal.
Who mostly are normal. No, yeah, that's true.
It's very
I don't know
interesting.
how some people survive and can adjust and other people can't.
Faith,
I mean, we're
like
all
Mr.
just
McDaniel
different.
said, yeah.
And, you know, whatever is around us, the environment around us helps us. How good are you at erasing things
How lucky are you?
or suppressing things?
Yeah. Compartmentalizing things. is-
Exactly.
yeah.
I mean, there's
Yeah.
a lot to do.
It's a
you know,
lot. Yeah.
With that.
And I think there's no one single answer. I think there's different answers for different people. I think the VA has come a long way in helping veterans with post-traumatic stress disorder, with, you know, physical and mental, emotional wounds of war. There's a lot of things available, you know, things from alternative medicine to, you know, Western medicine. So all of that.
It does. All of that does come into play. I am thrilled that you're here as the VSO.
Oh, it's an
because
honor. It's an honor.
You come with so much experience in dealing and with veterans, having relationship with veterans, plus the knowledge of knowing all these other organizations that do things.
But I'm the
for
new kid
veterans.
on the block. I'm still learning Chapter 115, still learning the VA system. So, you know.
Well, we're lucky that you're a quick learner. And there's lots of people in Fall River that are very helpful.
Oh my God, the community has been so great to me. It's overwhelming how much help people are like, I'll help you, I'll help you. You know, it's just been a hugely positive experience.
They do work well together. The Veterans War Council has lots of experience at
Yep.
running a lot of these different events that we have in the
Yep.
city. They kind of have it down to a science.
Science is right, yeah.
You know, and
I
you
just have to show up.
yeah. You
It's
have
easy.
Mr. Borges that puts the parade all together. He
Yep.
knows what division you're supposed to be in, and just lots. I mean, Bill has, you know, soups and nuts.
and it's their mission. They love it.
To do
So how could you ever not support that? Like, they love it.
I know one of the things that they're trying to look at, the last War Veterans Council meeting, was how do you get younger people involved? The younger veterans.
Well, so Rolling Thunder has the same issue as an organization, and I'm lucky. I'm in a chapter with 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, all ages of that. I think a few key things need to happen. You need to be willing to listen to the young people. You need to be willing to do things differently than you did before. You can't say, well, we've always done it this way. Sometimes you got to step outside of your comfort zone and do something and let it be great or a failure and move on from there.
Sometimes people find change very difficult to
Very
adapt to change.
difficult, yep.
You
Yep.
know?
If you want young members, you have to have my vice president. She is not a veteran. She has a 10-month-old baby, and we will sit at our meetings, and she'll have the little person, Hazel, with her. Like, that's the reality. If you're going to have young families, you're going to have kids running around, and that's how it is, and that's how our meetings are, and we're real about it,
That's good,
you know?
because that is a way to bring some in. So we want to bring in younger veterans,
Yes.
and we want to do a little bit more with female veterans.
For sure. And I think if we start, maybe we have to do a couple of things later in the day or after supper, because young families need to be able to do that as opposed to during work hours. That's life.
Well, I welcome you to Fall River if there's
Thank
anything
you.
I can do to help. Laura and I are both the liaisons to the veterans. We are putting in a resolution to get some money from ARPA for the Vets Kitchen to try to help them out.
Yep.
And tomorrow at the Vets Kitchen is their St.
St.
Patrick's
Patty's Day, I'll be
luncheon,
there.
And it'll be corned beef and cabbage and all the
Delicious.
fixings. So I do thank you very much for coming in. Hopefully we can do this again when other things
Absolutely.
come forward.
Absolutely.
You know, and to keep connected and to let the community know what's going on with the veterans of Fall River, what we're doing. So again, thank you. It was my pleasure to have you here today.
It's an honor. It's an honor. I'm so grateful.
And we'll see you all next week. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Stay safe.